Good morning, this is the Fat Health Teacher checking in. Today's topic is goal setting, and I decided on this topic because my doctor, who is Dr. Duke Vong, actually did a Periscope on, it wasn't quite on goal setting, but it was the idea of using drips in order to achieve your weight loss goals. So let me summarize his position real quick, and then I'm going to talk about how I handle that with my students. His idea behind drips is that if you are wanting to reach a weight loss goal, so my weight loss goal is 200 pounds, instead of thinking of 200 pounds, which is crazy and scary, okay, and instead of going and immediately starting to work out at the gym for 2 hours a day, lifting weights, running, doing all the cardio stuff, doing marathons, maybe signing up for triathlons, instead of going through your pantry and throwing everything out, you start with little changes. You do little changes that you can maintain, and then you allow those little changes to give you results that are going to be consistent over a long period of time. And these consistent results are going to get you towards your goal. Okay? This is fantastic advice. The thing that really stuck out to me, though, about his Periscope last night was the idea that not only can you set up these positive drips, maybe drinking a glass of water in the morning, or let's see what else. So a glass of water, maybe substituting fresh fruit for your french fries, that type of thing. So those are good drips, but you can also have negative drips. And this is actually one of the things that I struggle with, because I can easily justify it's just one bite of ice cream, or it's just one ice cream cone, or I'm just going to have that blizzard for tonight, that type of thing. But just like the small drips add up, the big drips also add up. Okay? So, where am I going with this, and how does it connect to what I talk to my students about? Well, when I work with my students, we talk about goal setting. So I'm not talking about just weight loss. I'm talking about all types of goal setting. When I talk to my students about goal setting, I talk about setting a big goal, like a big picture thing. And then instead of thinking about, okay, this is the big thing that I want to get to, and how far away is it, and what am I doing? The first thing that we look at is, where are you starting? Okay? So if I'm in middle school and I want to be a doctor, I'm not going to say that my next goal or the next step of my goal is to go to college. The next step of my goal is going to be to pass the 9 weeks. And then the next step is going to be to pass the semester. And the next step is going to be to pass the school year, to get out of middle school, to go to high school, and then to pass each of my classes. So this is a bunch of small things. So the way the doctor referred to it is these would all be drips, right? So I pass chemistry, this is a drip. I pass physics, this is a drip. And these are all going to eventually lead to my ability to go to medical school. When my students set their goals, they have a short-term goal, which is something that can be measured in days or weeks. They can do a long-term goal, which is going to be measured in months or years. Okay? And the first thing that they need to know is, where are they starting? All right? If I'm starting on a weight loss goal, I'm looking at that. If I'm starting on a fitness goal, I need to know what my current levels of fitness are. It's not going to do me any good to say I want to go run a marathon if walking around the block is already a challenge. It doesn't mean that I can't get to the marathon thing, but the marathon thing is really far away, and it's going to look impossible. After you've determined your starting level, what you're now going to do, so big picture, your really big goal, whatever it is, I'm not going to limit it to weight loss, but you have your really big goal, and then set up small things that you can do to go towards that goal, to move in the right direction. And what we're looking for is constant forward movement. We don't want to be the race car, right? So we don't want to be that person that's at the stoplight who's revving their engine and then slams the gas as soon as the light goes green. Okay, we don't want to be that person. That person is at a much greater risk of wrecking. All right, and we don't want that. We want to be the person who takes their foot off the brake, places it on the gas, gives themselves time to make sure that no one's going to run the red light. Okay, that you don't have somebody who was trying to beat the red light through the yellow, that kind of thing. and then go into the intersection. All right, so we want to be cautious, not necessarily overly cautious, but we want to be cautious. And the things that we set up, we want these to be things that we can maintain. Okay, so like Dr. Duck was saying, Dr. Vong was saying, we want a bunch of small changes that we can maintain. Okay, so for me, when I was on the road trip yesterday, so yesterday I was in my car for about 13 hours with a kid who needed 15 bathroom breaks, which was kind of crazy. But I actually feel like I did pretty well with the food. I had a couple of chocolate covered donuts, but only a couple. I had one thing of dibs, which are these little like ice cream poppable food things. But I drank quite a lot of water. I drank some juice. I snacked on cheese, not a lot. I made sure that my protein levels were up. And I actually did not feel exhausted, which was really nice. His 13 hours is a very long drive. Okay, so these were little changes. All right. Previously on road trips, I would be picking up a bunch of junk food. I didn't do that this time. Correct moves in the right direction. Now, another thing to think about is that any change that you do, 6 weeks. You've got to maintain for a minimum of 6 weeks. So if your goal is to walk for 20 minutes, okay, and you can walk for 15, 20 minutes is totally realistic for you to do as your next step. What you want to do is make sure that you are setting that up so that you're doing it for a total of 6 weeks. So if my goal is to go to the gym 3 times a week for at least half an hour, I'm going to do that for a minimum of 6 weeks. And 6 weeks is kind of the magic number, right? You do it for 6 weeks, and at this point, it's going to become kind of a habit, all right? Once it becomes a habit, it's going to be harder for you to quit, which is really what we're looking for. Because when you are working towards these goals, whether they be weight loss, whether they be fitness or financial goals, anything like that, we're looking for things that become habitual or ritualistic so that you continue to do them even when being lazy is tempting. Okay? So, where are you starting? What are your small steps? What are you going to do in order to get into that direction? And as you're making these steps, this is actually an exercise principle. So 20 minutes on the treadmill. Okay? So maybe I'm doing 20 minutes on the treadmill at a speed of 2 miles an hour, which is pretty slow, but that's about what I can handle. And I do an incline of 2 or 3. Okay? What I want to do is when that gets easy, I want to make it harder again. Okay? Our bodies are super efficient. So when we're doing things, it wants to figure out what we're doing, and it wants to do it in the easiest way possible. So if you are constantly doing the same thing, so if all I ever do for the next 20 years is walk around the block, at some point that's going to stop being a challenge for me. And then I'm not going to get any more exercise benefits out of it. Okay? And I want to keep improving. So once around the block is easy, I can either walk more blocks, I could do more laps, or I could try to walk faster. But the point is you want to make it more challenging. Now you got to be careful about making things more challenging. Okay? Again, you want to go little steps. So if I'm talking about fitness, let's say I'm doing bench press. All right? Now, I don't want to be big like Arnold or The Rock or even Vin Diesel. Okay? But I do want to be in shape. So if I can bench press the bar, all right, which is 45 pounds, if I can bench press the bar, either I'm going to do more repetitions, or I'm going to do more sets, or I'm going to add a little bit of weight, and I do mean like 5 pounds, maybe. And then once that gets easy, I'm going to step up again. But I'm only going to pick one category. Because if I try to change everything at once, that's too much change, and it's just not sustainable. All right, this is why the thing that Dr. Vong was saying about small drips is important, is you want things that are sustainable. If it's too much change, again, our body likes things to stay the same. If it's too much change, your body's going to say, cut it out. To relate this to things that have been recently in the news, some studies have been done on the people from Biggest Loser, right? If you've ever watched Biggest Loser, you'll be amazed at the changes that have occurred. And they're absolutely fantastic. These people are going from hundreds of pounds down to what you would consider a healthy weight. But most of the contestants have gained almost all of their weight back. Okay? The changes that they did are unsustainable. They had super restricted calories, they were exercising for hours and hours a day, they were pushing their bodies really, really hard, and now their bodies have rebelled. And instead of saying, yeah, we like the new weight and we're going to sustain this, their bodies were saying, okay, no, this is not going to work. According to these studies, it looks like one of the big things that has happened is that their metabolisms have actually changed in order to counteract the massive increase in calorie expenditure. And these metabolic changes are sticking with them. So even though they know what they need to do, even though they know how to eat, they know how to exercise in order to maintain their levels of health, their bodies are still overweight. It's an interesting thing. I want to review one more time. Figure out what your goal is, make it big, and then figure out where you are, then set up really small steps. Little things that you can do step by step. And as you do a small change, once that becomes a routine, add something else. Change it again, just a little bit. All right? And if you do gradual things, you're going to get to that goal. In my introductory psych class, okay, when I was in college, so this is, I don't know, like 15 years ago, one of the things they talked about is the foot in the door principle. All right. There was a study about guards, right? What they wanted to know is how can people who would not do horrible things be trained to do horrible things? Like how do they make that jump? Okay. And what they found is you start with little things that seem acceptable, and then you just keep pushing. All right, and you'll see this with abuse as well. The abuser starts with something that makes the person a little uncomfortable, but it's not a huge warning sign. And they push, and then if you're the person that this is happening to, you'll find yourself maybe years later looking back, and your eyes, you kind of wake up and you're like, how did I get here? How is it that I am allowing this to happen to me? Like, how did this happen? And the person's not going to beat the crap out of you the first time. They're not going to call you names the very first time you date them, because any rational person's going to say, forget it, I'm not sticking with this person, right? But they do it step by step. So what they did with the guards is they discovered that in order to get guards to participate in beatings, what they would do is first, they would have them stand guard in the hallway. And they would listen to the person getting beat up or interrogated. Okay. Then they would have the person stand guard right outside the door. Then they would move it, so once that level of comfort was achieved, they would move that person to inside the room. They're still not participating in the beatings, but they're inside the room. And now they have not only the audio, but they also have the visual. Okay? And then they're asked to restrain the prisoner while this is happening. Okay? Once they're comfortable with that, now they're graduated to actually participating in the beatings. And they found that if you take any person and kind of train them, this whole foot in the door thing, where you start out with little things and then you gradually go to something big, that you can get people to make huge changes and to make decisions that they wouldn't normally have done for themselves. All right? So this knowledge can be used for good. This knowledge can be used for evil. As Uncle Ben said to Spider-Man, to Peter Parker, with power, right? With great power comes great responsibility. So we got to use our knowledge to make good changes and to not do bad changes. This is, so your goals. Food, fitness, money. It can be quitting smoking. It can be eliminating your drinking. Whatever it is, you can do it using small changes. This is the Fat Health Teacher signing out. If you like what you're hearing, please subscribe and share. Thank you very much.